The year was 2247, and humanity had finally reached the stars. They had built colonies on 3 distant worlds. They had discovered how to travel faster than light. But in a galaxy filled with ancient and powerful species, humans were still very young. They were like children walking into a room full of giants. Admiral Kang Taeho stood on the bridge of the Soul's Edge, the most powerful warship Earth had ever built. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had fought in 3 wars and had never lost a battle. But today, he faced something different. Today, he faced the end of everything. The tactical display in front of him showed the enemy. 12,000 alien warships had appeared near Jupiter. They belonged to the Vorath Dominion, a species that had conquered the galaxy for 10,000 years. The Vorath did not talk. They did not make deals. They simply took what they wanted and destroyed everything else. Their ships were massive. Each one was the size of a small moon. They were covered in dark metal and strange lights. They moved through space like predators hunting for food. Taeho watched them come. His face showed nothing. Inside, his heart beat fast, but he did not let anyone see his fear. A good leader never showed fear. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Kim Ji-yeon, the young navigator sitting at her station. "The Vorath fleet is holding position near Jupiter's 3rd moon. They are scanning our defense systems." "Let them scan," Taeho replied quietly. "They will not find what they are looking for." On Earth, people were scared. The news had spread across the planet in minutes. 12,000 alien warships. An invasion force larger than anything humanity had ever seen. Families held each other. Children cried. Leaders gave speeches about hope and courage, but everyone knew the truth. Earth's entire fleet was only 200 ships. Against 12,000, they had no chance. But the leaders of Earth knew something. The people did not. They knew about Project Singularity deep beneath the city of Busan. In a secret laboratory hidden under mountains of rock and metal, Dr. Park Yuna sat at her computer. She was a small woman with tired eyes and messy hair. She had not slept in 3 days. For 15 years she had worked on this project. 15 years of calculations, experiments, and failures. And now, finally, it was ready. Project Singularity was not a weapon like any other. It did not fire missiles or lasers. It did not create explosions. It did something far more terrifying. It bent the fabric of space itself. Yuna's hands moved across her keyboard, entering the final commands. Around her, dozens of scientists watched in silence. They all knew what was about to happen. They all knew that the fate of humanity rested on this moment. "Final calibration complete," Yuna announced. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "Project Singularity is ready for activation." She sent a coded message to Admiral Taeho. The weapon was armed. All they needed now was authorization. Back on the Soul's Edge, Communications Officer Lee Hanna received the message. She was a young woman with sharp eyes and quick fingers. She had joined the military 5 years ago, hoping to explore the stars. She had never imagined she would be here, at the center of humanity's last stand. "Admiral," she said, "Dr. Park confirms that Singularity is ready. We are waiting for your command." Taeho nodded slowly. "Good. Now we wait for them to make their move." Did not have to wait long. The main screen flickered, and a face appeared. It was not a human face. It was something else entirely. The Vorath High Commander had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. His skin was gray and rough, like old leather. His mouth was full of sharp teeth, and when he spoke, his voice was cold and cruel. "Creatures of Earth," the alien said, "I am High Commander Vrex of the Vorath Dominion. Your planet has been selected for harvesting. Your species will serve us. Your resources will fuel our expansion. You will surrender immediately, or you will be destroyed." The message ended. Silence filled the bridge. Lieutenant Kim Ji-yeon looked at the Admiral with wide eyes. "Sir, what do we do?" Taeho stood perfectly still for a long moment. Then slowly, he turned to face his crew. These were good people. Brave people. They had families on Earth. They had dreams and hopes and fears, and they were all looking at him, waiting for him to tell them what to do. "We do what we have always done," Tejo said quietly. "We fight." He walked to the communications console and pressed a button. His voice would now broadcast across all frequencies, reaching not just the Vorath fleet, but every ship and station in the solar system. "This is Admiral Kong Tejo of the United Earth Defense Force," he began. His voice was calm and clear. "Vorath Dominion, you are in violation of sovereign human space. You have entered our home without permission. You have threatened our people with death and slavery." Paused, letting his words sink in. "I am giving you one warning. One chance to turn around and leave. You have 60 seconds to withdraw your fleet from human space. If you do not, you will face consequences beyond your understanding." He released the button and stepped back. On the bridge, no one moved. No one spoke. They all knew that the Vorath had never retreated from anything. They had conquered 47 species. They had destroyed entire civilizations. They would not run from 200 human ships. But Tejo knew something the Vorath did not. He knew about Project Singularity. He knew about the 17 orbital stations positioned throughout the solar system, each one holding a piece of the most powerful technology ever created. He knew about Dr. Park Yuna sitting in her laboratory, her finger hovering over the activation button. The Vorath did not know any of this. They saw only a small young species with weak ships and soft bodies. They saw prey. They did not see the trap. Communications Officer Hannah watched her screen as the seconds ticked by. 50 seconds. 40 seconds. 30 seconds. The entire galaxy was watching. Every species with the technology to monitor human communications was listening. They all expected to see humanity crushed. They all expected the Vorath to sweep through Earth like a storm through dry grass. They were wrong. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. The Vorath fleet began to move forward. High Commander Vrex had made his choice. He had ignored Earth's final warning. Admiral Tejo closed his eyes for just a moment. When he opened them again, they were hard as stone. "Activate Project Singularity," he commanded, and the universe changed forever. High Commander Vrex sat on his throne aboard the Vorath flagship Endless Hunger. He was surrounded by his officers, all of them watching the human transmission with amusement. The small human admiral had just threatened them. Threatened them. The very idea was laughable. Vrex had lived for 300 years. He had conquered 12 species personally. He had watched entire planets burn. He had eaten the leaders of fallen civilizations as a show of dominance. And now, this tiny creature from a tiny world was giving him a warning? He laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through the command chamber. His officers joined him, their own laughter filling the air. "Did you hear that?" Vrex said, his 4 eyes gleaming with dark humor. "The human thinks he can frighten us. He thinks his little ships can stop the Vorath Dominion." His second in command, a scarred warrior named Krell, stepped forward. "Should we respond, High Commander?" "Yes," Vrex replied, leaning back on his throne. "Let us teach this creature what fear truly means." He activated his own communication system. His face appeared on every screen aboard the Soul's Edge and every other human ship in the solar system. "Primitive creature," Vrex said slowly, making sure every word was heard. "Your warning is noted and dismissed. Your species will be harvested within the lunar cycle. Your world will be stripped of resources. Your people will serve as food and labor. There is nothing you can do to stop this. Your fleet is small. Your technology is weak. You are nothing." Cut the transmission and turned to his officers. "Begin the advance. Send the harvester drones to the moon colonies first. I want the humans to see their people taken before we reach their homeworld. Across the Vorath fleet, thousands of small ships launched from the larger warships. These were harvester drones, automated vessels designed to capture living beings. Each drone could hold 200 prisoners. Together, they could capture millions." On the bridge of the Soul's Edge, everyone watched in horror as the drones launched. There were so many of them. They filled the tactical display like a swarm of insects. Lieutenant Kim Guillen's hands were shaking as she tracked their movement. Admiral Harvester drones are heading toward Luna Base. 12 million civilians are stationed there. Communications Officer Lee Hanna turned to look at Admiral Taeho. Her eyes were filled with fear, but also with trust. She believed in him. They all did. Admiral, she said quietly, Dr. Park is waiting for your command. Project Singularity is fully charged.
I doubt you.
He stood at the center of the bridge, watching the enemy fleet on the display. He was thinking, planning. He needed to time this perfectly. Deep beneath Busan, Dr. Park Yuna waited in her laboratory. Her screen showed real-time data from all 17 Singularity stations positioned throughout the solar system. Each station held a massive device, a machine that could tear holes in the fabric of space. Alone, each device was powerful. Together, they were something else entirely. Yuna had discovered the principles behind this technology 10 years ago. She had found a way to create targeted gravitational fields so strong that they could fold space like paper. At first, she had imagined using it for travel, instant transportation across the galaxy. But the military had seen other uses. They had seen a weapon that could not be stopped, could not be blocked, could not be survived. Her assistant, a young man named Cho Sung-ho, sat at the weapons console on orbital station Hanuel. He was one of 18 officers who each held a piece of the activation code. All 18 had to enter their codes at the same time for the weapon to fire. Standing by, Sung-ho said into his communicator. His voice was steady, but his heart was pounding. He understood what he was about to do. He understood that after today, the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. On every human ship, soldiers prepared for battle. They knew they could not win a direct fight. 200 ships against 12,000. The math was clear. But they were not running. They would not hide. They were human, and humans did not surrender. In the crew quarters of the Soul's Edge, young sailors said quiet prayers. Some wrote messages to their families, hoping the words would somehow reach home. Others sat in silence, thinking about the lives they had lived and the things they had done. No one expected to survive, Admiral. Taeho opened a new communication channel. This time, he was not speaking to the Vorath. He was speaking to everyone else, to all species monitoring this transmission. He began. What happens next is not our choice. It is theirs. The Vorath Dominion has threatened our world with destruction and slavery. We gave them a warning. A single warning. They laughed at us. He paused, his eyes hard. Humanity does not seek war. We do not wish to harm anyone, but we will not be prey. We will not watch our children be taken. We will not bow to those who see us as food. Across the galaxy, countless species listened to his words. Most of them expected to hear a surrender announcement. Instead, they heard something else. Remember what happens next? Taeho continued. Remember that we asked them to leave. Remember that they refused. And remember that humanity, when pushed to the edge, will push back. He closed the channel and turned to face his crew. The Vorath harvester drones were getting closer to Luna Base. In 20 minutes, it would begin capturing civilians. Men, women, children, all of them would be taken. Admiral Lieutenant Jian said urgently, "We are running out of time." Taeho nodded slowly. "I know." He walked to the command console and entered his authorization code. Across the solar system, 17 other officers did the same. In her laboratory, Dr. Park Yuna watched as all 18 codes appeared on her screen. "Authorization complete," she whispered. Her finger hovered over the final button, the button that would change everything. "Admiral," she said through the communicator, "Project Singularity is ready to fire. All stations are synchronized. Targeting solutions are locked. On your command?" Taeho looked at the tactical display one last time. 12,000 enemy warships. Thousands of harvester drones. The largest invasion force the galaxy had ever seen, and standing against them. 200 human ships, and a weapon that had never been tested in combat. He thought about his daughter. Living in Seoul, He thought about his grandchildren, playing in parks that would soon be harvesting grounds if he failed. He thought about every human being on Earth, looking up at the sky and wondering if tomorrow would come. He thought about the warning he had given. The warning the Vorath had ignored. Fire, Admiral Kong Taeho commanded in her laboratory. Dr. Park Yuna pressed the button, and across the solar system, 17 stations activated simultaneously, releasing a pulse of gravitational energy that rippled through space like waves through water the Vorath had ignored. Earth's final warning. Now they would pay the price. The first sign that something was wrong came from the sensors. Across every Vorath ship, alarms began to scream. Officers shouted in confusion. Captains demanded answers, but no one understood what was happening. High Commander Vrex jumped to his feet, his 4 eyes scanning the displays around him. What is this? What is happening to my fleet? His chief scientist, a nervous creature named Vex, stared at his instruments with growing terror. High Commander, I am detecting gravitational anomalies forming around every ship in the fleet. The readings are impossible. Space itself is ... bending. Bending. Vrex roared. What does that mean? I do not know, High Commander. This technology is beyond anything we have ever encountered. It is as if the universe itself is folding around us. On the bridge of the Soul's Edge, Lieutenant Kim Gion watched her sensors with wide eyes. She had never seen anything like this. The space around the Vorath fleet was shimmering like heat rising from hot ground. Waves of distorted light rippled outward from each enemy ship. Admiral, she breathed, the gravitational readings are off every scale we have. Whatever Dr. Park built, it is working. Admiral Taeho stood perfectly still watching the display. His face showed no emotion, but inside he felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Project Singularity is not a weapon in the traditional sense, he said quietly, speaking to his crew. It does not destroy. It does not burn. It relocates. Communications Officer Lee Hanna looked at him with confusion. Relocates, sir? Dr. Park found a way to fold space. To create a bridge between 2 points in the universe. But instead of using it for travel, she designed it to move things without their consent. Every ship in that fleet is about to be sent somewhere very, very far away. Far away did not begin to describe it. Aboard the Vorath flagship, chaos had taken hold. Officers ran in every direction. Soldiers shouted orders that no one followed. The ship itself seemed to be shaking, not from damage, from the fabric of space twisting around it. High Commander Vrex grabbed Dex by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Stop this. Whatever the humans are doing, stop it. I cannot. Vex gasped. This is not an attack we can block or counter. They are manipulating gravity itself. They are tearing holes in space around every ship. I have never seen anything like this. No species has ever developed this technology. Vrex threw him to the ground and turned to his communications officer. Contact the rest of the fleet. Order all ships to activate emergency drives. We must escape. But it was too late. Across the Vorath Armada, 12,000 warships began to fade. It was not like an explosion. There was no fire, no debris, no destruction. The ships simply became less real. They flickered like images on a broken screen. Their lights dimmed. Their shapes blurred from the human ships. Everyone watched in stunned silence. They had expected something dramatic, something loud. Instead, they saw the greatest fleet in galactic history simply disappear, one by one. The massive Vorath vessels folded into themselves and vanished. The harvester drones went next, thousands of them blinking out of existence in seconds. The space where the invasion force had gathered became empty, dark, and silent. High Commander Vrex had time for only one last transmission. His voice, which had been so confident moments ago, was now filled with confusion and fear. Where he began, and then he was gone. The main display on the Soul's Edge updated. Where 12,000 red dots had crowded the screen, there was now nothing. Empty space. Stars. The distant light of Jupiter. Lieutenant. Gion checked her instruments 3 times before she spoke. Her voice was shaking. Marl. The Vorath fleet is gone. All 12,000 ships, all harvester drones, everything, they are just ... gone. Admiral Tejo let out a long, slow breath. He had not realized he was holding it. It's not gone, he said softly. Relocated. He opened a channel to Dr. Park Yuna in her laboratory. Doctor confirmed destination coordinates. Yuna's face appeared on his screen. She looked exhausted, but there was a small smile on her lips. Confirmed, Admiral. The entire Vorath fleet has been transported to coordinates in deep intergalactic space, approximately 4.7 billion light-years from our galaxy. They are in the void between galaxy clusters. No stars, no planets, no resources, nothing. Can they return? No, Yuna replied. Even with their fastest drives, it would take them millions of years to reach the nearest galaxy. And without stars to refuel, they will run out of power long before then. For all practical purposes, they no longer exist in our universe. On the bridge, the crew of the Soul's Edge began to react. Some laughed in disbelief. Others cried with relief. A few simply stared at the empty tactical display, unable to process what had happened. Communications Officer Hannah was receiving transmissions from across the solar system. Every human ship, every station, every colony was asking the same question. What happened? Admiral, she said. Luna Base is reporting that the harvester drones vanished just moments before they would have reached the civilian sectors. 12 million people are safe. Tejo closed his eyes for a moment. 12 million people. Children who would grow up to have children of their own. Families who would stay together. Lives that would continue because of what they had done today. Good, he said simply. But the celebration was tempered by understanding. What humanity had done today was not just a victory. It was a statement. They had shown the galaxy that they possessed power beyond anything anyone had imagined. They had destroyed an empire in seconds, without firing a single shot. The other species would be watching. They would be afraid. And fear could be just as dangerous as aggression. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The invasion was over. The aliens were gone. Humanity had won. In cities around the world, people poured into the streets, crying and hugging and cheering. They did not understand what Project Singularity was. They did not know the details of how the Vorath had been defeated. They only knew that they were alive. In her laboratory, Dr. Park Yuna sat alone at her desk. The celebration around her had quieted. Her colleagues had left to be with their families. But she stayed, looking at the data on her screens. She had created the most powerful weapon in the history of the universe. She had saved her species. But she could not shake the feeling that she had also opened a door that could never be closed. What would happen when other species learned about this technology? What would happen when humanity's enemies realized what they could do? Would they attack anyway, hoping to destroy Earth before the weapon could fire? Or would they bow down in fear, becoming slaves to human power? Neither option seemed good. Her communicator beeped. It was a message from Admiral Tejo. Doctor, his recorded voice said, on behalf of the human race, thank you. What you did today saved billions of lives. We will never forget it. Yuna did not respond. She simply turned off her screen and sat in the darkness, thinking about the future she had created. Outside, in the cold emptiness of space, the solar system was quiet. The Vorath were gone. Earth was safe. But somewhere, 4.7 billion light-years away, 12,000 warships drifted in absolute darkness. Their crews screamed into the void, demanding answers that would never come. The Vorath Dominion, conquerors of the galaxy, had been erased from the universe, and humanity had announced itself to the cosmos in a way that no one would ever forget. 3 days passed. The galaxy waited. Every species with access to communication technology watched the empty space where the Vorath fleet had once been. They replayed the recordings over and over, trying to understand what had happened. Scientists argued. Philosophers debated. Military leaders panicked. The humans remained silent. On Earth, celebrations continued, but the leaders of the United Earth government were meeting in secret. They knew that what they said next would shape the future of humanity forever. They could not afford to make mistakes. Admiral Kong Taeho sat at the head of the table in the underground command center. Beside him were the most powerful people on Earth. Defense Minister Daeho, a serious man who had spent his life preparing for war. Ambassador Baek Sumin, a brilliant diplomat who had negotiated treaties with 3 alien species. And Dr. Park Yuna, who looked more tired than anyone had ever seen her. "The galaxy is demanding answers," Ambassador Baek said, reading from her datapad. "We have received over 2,000 official inquiries from various species. Many of them are afraid. Some of them are angry. All of them want to know what we did and how we did it." Defense Minister O leaned forward. "We should tell them nothing. The less they know about Project Singularity, the safer we are." "That would be a mistake," Baek replied firmly. "If we remain silent, they will assume the worst. They will think we are building more weapons. They will think we are planning to conquer the galaxy. Fear leads to desperate actions. We could face another attack within months." Admiral Taeho nodded slowly. "Ambassador Baek is right. We need to control this story. We need to show the galaxy that we are not conquerors. We are defenders." Dr. Park Yuna spoke for the first time. Her voice was quiet but clear. "I will explain it to them. Project Singularity is my creation. I should be the one to reveal its nature." Everyone turned to look at her. There was surprise in their eyes. Yuna had always preferred to work in the shadows. She hated public attention. "Are you sure, Doctor?" Taeho asked. She replied. "The galaxy needs to hear the truth from the person who built the weapon. They need to understand that it was created out of necessity, not ambition. And they need to know its limitations." The next day, Dr. Park Yuna appeared before the United Species Assembly via quantum broadcast. It was the largest audience in galactic history. Representatives from over 100 species watched as the small human woman stepped up to speak. Beside her on the screen stood Admiral Taeho, Ambassador Baek, and Defense Minister. Oh, they presented a united front. But Yuna was the focus. She was the one the galaxy wanted to hear. "I am Dr. Park Yuna," she began. "I am the creator of Project Singularity, the technology that removed the Vorith Dominion from known space. I am here to explain what happened and what it means for the galaxy." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "First, let me be clear about one thing. The Vorith Dominion is not destroyed. They are not dead. Every ship, every crew member, every living being in that fleet has been relocated to a point approximately 4.7 billion light-years from this galaxy. They are in intergalactic void space, far from any star or planet. They cannot return. But they still exist." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. This was not what anyone had expected. They had assumed the humans had built a weapon of destruction. Instead, they had built something far stranger. "Project Singularity works by manipulating gravity on a massive scale," Yuna continued. "We create targeted gravitational fields that fold space around objects and transport them to a predetermined location. The technology cannot destroy planets or stations. It can only affect vessels in motion within a defined radius. It is purely defensive." One of the alien delegates spoke up. His species resembled tall insects, and his voice clicked and buzzed as he talked. "You expect us to believe that this weapon is defensive? You erased an entire fleet in seconds." "We gave them a warning," Defense Minister O replied, his voice cold and steady. Admiral Taeho offered them 60 seconds to withdraw. They laughed at us. They called us primitive. They launched harvester drones to capture our people. The Vorith chose their fate. We simply delivered it. Another delegate, a being made of flowing liquid contained in a transparent suit, asked the next question. "What stops you from using this technology to conquer other species? If you can remove any fleet you want, what stops you from removing us?" Ambassador Baek stepped forward. "Project Singularity cannot be used for conquest. The technology requires 17 orbital stations, all of which must be positioned within a specific range of the target. It takes months to set up and days to charge. It is not a sword. It is a shield." She let her words sink in before continuing. Humanity does not seek empire. We do not wish to rule the galaxy. We only want to live in peace. But we will never be prey. We will never allow our people to be harvested or enslaved. Any species that attacks Earth will face the same fate as the Vorith. This is not a threat. It is a promise. The assembly fell silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. The representatives looked at each other, trying to process what they had heard. Finally, an ancient being spoke. He was from one of the oldest species in the galaxy, a race that had existed for millions of years. His body was frail and his voice was weak, but everyone listened when he talked. "We have watched younger species rise and fall," he said slowly. "We have seen conquerors come and go. The Voroth were cruel, but they were predictable. They followed patterns we understood. Humans are different. You have been among the stars for less than 2 centuries, and already you possess power that exceeds anything we have seen." He paused, his ancient eyes studying the human faces on the screen. "You frighten us," he admitted. "But I do not believe you are evil. I have studied your history. You fight among yourselves often, but you also show remarkable capacity for growth and change, perhaps. Perhaps this is what the galaxy needs, a species that will not bow to tyrants." Admiral Tejo responded with a slight bow of respect. "We do not ask you to trust us immediately. Trust must be earned. We only ask that you give us the chance to prove ourselves. Trade with us. Talk with us. Judge us by our actions, not by your fears." The broadcast ended shortly after. The galaxy had received its answers. Now it was time to see what would happen next. On Earth, people watched the broadcast in homes and public squares. They saw their leaders standing before the galaxy, speaking with confidence and strength. They felt pride in what humanity had become, but they also felt something else, a quiet unease. They had always believed they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they were surrounded by ancient and powerful species. And while those species now feared humanity, fear was not the same as friendship. In her laboratory, Dr. Park Yuna removed her formal clothes and put on her usual worn coat. She was glad the broadcast was over. She hated being the center of attention. Her assistant Cho Soon-jo brought her a cup of tea. "You did well, Doctor." "The galaxy knows the truth now." "The truth," Yuna repeated quietly. "Yes, they know what we can do. But do they know who we are? Do they understand that we built this weapon because we were scared? Because we knew that one day something like the Vorith would come." She looked out the window at the sky above. "We are not heroes," she said. "We are survivors. And survivors do what they must." Sunho did not know how to respond. So he simply sat beside her in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning to see humanity in a new light. And humanity was learning that being powerful came with responsibilities they had never imagined. 6 months had passed since the Vorath vanished. The galaxy was changing. The Vorith Dominion had ruled through fear for 10,000 years. They had conquered 47 species and enslaved billions. Their empire had seemed eternal, unbreakable, inevitable. And then, in a matter of seconds, it had simply ceased to exist. The species they had conquered rose up. Without their masters to control them, they broke free of their chains. Slave worlds became free worlds. Harvesting stations were abandoned. The great machine of the Voroth Empire ground to a halt, and something new began to grow in its place. Admiral Kung Tejo stood at the window of his quarters aboard the Soul's Edge, reading the morning reports. His ship was now stationed at the edge of human space, serving as both a symbol of strength and a gateway for diplomats from across the galaxy. The reports were encouraging. 17 species had requested formal diplomatic ties with Earth. 4 had asked to study human philosophy and culture. 2 had formally apologized for threats they had made against humanity in the past. Before they understood what humans were capable of, there was a knock at his door. She had been promoted after the battle, a reward for her steady performance under pressure. She still wore her uniform with pride, but there was something different in her eyes now. Something harder. She had seen what war looked like, even when the enemy never fired a shot. "Admiral, the delegation from the free colonies has arrived. They are waiting in the conference room." Tejo nodded and set down his reports. The free colonies were what remained of the Vorith's former subjects. 23 species had banded together to form a new government, one based on cooperation rather than conquest. They wanted to establish trade relations with Earth. "Thank you, Commander. I will be there shortly." Hannah hesitated at the door. "Sir, may I ask you something? Of course, do you ever regret it? What we did to the Vorath?" Tejo was quiet for a long moment. It was a question he had asked himself many times. "I regret that it was necessary," he finally said. "I regret that they gave us no choice. But I do not regret protecting our people. That is my duty. That is why I became a soldier." Hannah nodded slowly. "I understand, sir. Thank you." She left, and Tejo returned to looking out the window. The stars seemed brighter now, more alive. Before the Vorath came, they had been mysteries. Now, they were opportunities. On Earth, life had returned to normal. Or at least as normal as it could be after learning the truth about the universe. Children went to school. Adults went to work. Families gathered for meals and celebrated holidays. But there was a new awareness in everyone's eyes. They knew they were not alone. They knew the galaxy was watching. In Busan, Dr. Park Yuna had returned to her laboratory. She was no longer working on weapons. Instead, she had turned her attention to peaceful applications of her technology. If gravity could be bent to transport fleets, it could also be bent to travel between stars. She was designing a new kind of ship, one that could cross the galaxy in days rather than years. "You look tired," said a voice from the doorway. Yuna looked up to see Admiral Tejo standing there, holding 2 cups of tea. He had aged in the past 6 months. There were more lines on his face, more gray in his hair, but his eyes were still calm, still steady. "I am always tired," she replied with a small smile. "That has not changed." Tejo sat down across from her and handed her a cup. For a while, neither of them spoke. They just sat together, 2 people who had changed the course of history, trying to find peace in a quiet moment. "Do you ever think about them?" Yuna asked finally. "The Vorath, I mean, drifting out there in the darkness." "Sometimes," Tejo admitted. "I wonder what they are thinking. I wonder if they understand what happened to them. They will run out of power eventually. Their ships will go cold. They will die in the void, alone and forgotten." "Yes." Yuna set down her tea and looked at her old friend. "Does that bother you?" Tejo considered the question carefully. "They came to harvest us. To turn our children into food? They laughed when we asked them to leave. They saw us as nothing more than animals to be slaughtered." He paused. "So no, it does not bother me. They earned their fate." "But it bothers you that it does not bother you." Tejo smiled faintly. "You always did understand me too well, Yuna," she returned the smile. "We are old friends, Tejo. We have carried this burden together. That means something." They finished their tea in comfortable silence. Outside the window, the sun was setting over Busan, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold the next morning. Commander Hannah delivered the daily briefing on the Soul's Edge. The conference with the free colonies had gone well. Trade agreements were being drafted. Cultural exchanges were being planned. For the first time in galactic history, humans were being invited to visit other worlds as guests rather than threats. "There is one more thing, Admiral," Hannah added. "A personal message from Earth. From your daughter." Tejo took the message and read it in silence. His daughter had written to tell him that his grandson had taken his first steps. There was a picture attached. A small child wobbling across a living room with a huge smile on his face. For a moment, Tejo forgot about the galaxy. He forgot about politics and weapons and ancient enemies. He just looked at that picture and smiled. This was why they had fought. This was why they had built Project Singularity. So that children could take their first steps without fear. So that families could stay together. So that humanity could have a future. He tucked the picture into his pocket and turned to face his crew. "Tell the free colonies that Earth welcomes them as friends," he commanded, "and remind them of one thing. "What is that, sir?" Hannah asked. Tejo's eyes were hard, but there was warmth in his voice. "Tell them that humanity always gives one warning. Only one. Those who respect that will find us to be good allies. Those who do not," did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood. Far away, 4.7 billion light-years from the galaxy. The Vorath fleet drifted in endless darkness. Their lights were fading. Their power cores were dying. High Commander Vrek sat alone on his cold throne, staring into the void. He had conquered 47 species. He had believed himself invincible. And now he floated in nothing, surrounded by nothing, waiting for nothing. The humans had beaten him with a single warning. A warning he had ignored. He would have millions of years to think about that mistake. Millions of years of darkness and silence and regret. On Earth, children played in parks. Couples walked hand in hand through city streets. Scientists looked up at the stars with wonder and hope. Humanity had announced itself to the cosmos. They had proven that they were not weak, not primitive, not prey. They were something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. Survivors, fighters, dreamers, and they were just getting started. The future called, and somewhere aboard the Soul's Edge, Admiral Kong Tejo looked at his grandson's picture. One more time before putting it away. He had work to do. Humanity was no longer alone, and they never would be again.